Hi, my name is Peter Rober. Together with Lucia de Hane, I have written an article on cultural differences and universalities in family therapy practice. It was published in JFT, and with this podcast, we will try to clarify some of the points we have been trying to make in that article. When we look at family therapy literature on working with families from another culture, there are two concepts that are very often emphasized. One concept is cultural differences, and the other is cultural competence. And very often, the cultural competence of the therapist is considered to be the answer to the difficulty of working with cultural differences. What we want to emphasize in our article is that besides the cultural differences, there also is some kind of shared humanity. There also are universalities that are important when we work with families from a culture different than our own. We are not claiming that we can define what is precisely this shared humanity. We are claiming, however, that if we don't accept the existence of something of a shared humanity, in fact, we are denying to others that they are like us. And in fact, we also are in danger of making them unequal. In order to illustrate what we mean by this concept of shared humanity, we want to refer to a lecture of the Nigerian writer Chimamanda Adichie. In this lecture, she tells the story of her meeting with her roommate while she was studying in the United States.
Years later, I thought about this when I left Nigeria to go to university in the United States. I was 19. My American roommate was shocked by me. She asked where I had learned to speak English so well and was confused when I said that Nigeria happened to have English as its official language. She asked if she could listen to what she called my tribal music and was consequently very disappointed when I produced my tape of Mariah Carey. She assumed that I did not know how to use a stove. What struck me was this: she had felt sorry for me even before she saw me. Her default position toward me, as an African, was a kind of patronizing, well-meaning pity. My roommate had a single story of Africa, a single story of catastrophe. In this single story, there was no possibility of Africans being similar to her in any way, no possibility of feelings more complex than pity, no possibility of a connection as human equals.
In her lecture, Adichie recounts how the roommate only expected to see cultural differences and how, in fact, she was denied being similar to this American roommate. We are not denying that there are cultural differences. Neither are we denying that these differences are very important. What we are saying is that besides these differences, there also are universalities. There is some kind of shared humanity that is veiled by differences. The cultural differences are much more obvious, and the shared humanity is much more difficult to see. In order to illustrate the tension between cultural differences and universalities, we can refer to the differences between cultures in terms of sexuality. Indeed, there are cultural differences in terms of sexuality, in a sense, for instance, that in different cultures, different kinds of sexual behaviors are allowed or not allowed. So this shows that there are cultural differences. However, there is also the universality, and the universality in terms of sexuality is the fact that all societies, all cultures have rules around sexuality. There don't exist any cultures without rules about sexuality. And that's the universality. Universality is that sexuality in some way has to be regulated by cultural norms and rules. This tension between cultural differences and universalities can make a lot of difference towards family therapy practice. Family therapy practice should not be based only on the acknowledgement of cultural differences and on the therapist's cultural competence, but acknowledging the existence of universalities opens space for bridging the gap between me and a family from a completely different culture by focusing on what we have in common. Of course, then the question is, what do we have in common with families from completely different cultures? Well, one of the things we have in common is our humanity. The fact that we are humans and that we try to do the best we can to be good fathers and good husbands and good mothers and so on. Also the fact that we are mortals and that we have a limited time here on earth to make a difference. And so these are more existential aspects of our meeting families from different cultures that we have in common with them. In fact, very often it is about acknowledging that although there are all these differences, in essence we are the same. We are different, but in a sense we're the same.